except the defendant
Hello,
himself
hello.
was accused of illegally
Well,
obtaining classified documents.
let's go back to
What are we
Minecraft.
missing here?
I don't think you're missing very much, Michael, at all. And in fact, one of the things that has folks like me scratching our heads is that in terms of how she's allocating her time to that backlog of motions that Andrew was just discussing, she,
Have any
for
food in
example,
here?
gave almost 2 full days to the question of whether Jack Smith was lawfully appointed. But when Jack Smith went to her and said, we need to modify Trump's bail conditions because his speech is threatening the safety of people involved in the investigation, Judge Cannon said, literally, you can have 2 hours this coming Tuesday. So the fact that she is allocating her time in the way that she is, given the gravity of the situation.
I have to look out the window while we eat, you know.
Told her, for example, the other day, hey, we need you to modify these conditions because there was a real threat aimed at an FBI official on June 11th. This is not speculative or conjectural. This is imminent and real. And yet, how is Judge Cannon spending her time? Thinking about whether Jack Smith was lawfully appointed in ways that the Supreme Court and 2 circuit courts in recent years have already considered and rejected. It's just baffling, Michael.
So baffling is an understatement when it comes to the actions of this particular judge, Andrew. As Lisa mentioned, there's also a hearing tomorrow that's going to deal with Jack Smith's request for a gag order on Trump. Given the fact that Trump has been making these false claims that the FBI was out to kill him during the search of Mar-a-Lago, help us understand exactly what this is that we're watching unfold here. This word, sounds like there's something else going on here. That a posse of significant, an imminent foreseeable danger to law enforcement is his argument, while Donald Trump is like saying, "Oh, they were coming to get me." How can Judge Cannon justify not taking actions on this aspect of it?
So I think
Let's get some bushes.
she is playing with fire.
No bushes.
There are 2 motions pending having to do with Donald Trump's statements that.
Oh, you know what I want to do? I want to go see if there's any dripstone.
One is in New York related to the gag order there. The other is before Judge Cannon. And this is one, as Lisa pointed out, the judge has been so cavalier in the way that she has handled this, the timing of it, delaying actually having a hearing, initially even rejecting the filing that was made.
No, not you guys.
It wasn't sufficient conferral with the other side. I mean, that is the kind of sort of actions that I think if she
Hey, horsey, if I had a saddle, I'd be riding you.
It will be something that I think Jack Smith will feel obligated to take to the 11th Circuit. Remember, that circuit has already overruled Judge Cannon twice in scathing language. And if she does this again here, she has to know that that kind of behavior and that sort of disrespect for safety of law enforcement is precisely the kind of thing that Jack Smith will feel obligated to take up on appeal, and is the kind of thing that could really get her, depending on the panel, the judges sitting on the matter in the 11th Circuit, could really get her in hot water. And it could not be more serious, and it's the reason you see judges like Judge Merchan in New York taking such serious steps to make sure.
Now there's a big hole in the wall over there somewhere.
Endangering people who are just doing their jobs.
Lisa, the final point to you. There's a lot of frustration all across the country with all of this. You're watching Judge Cannon slow roll this trial. You're watching the Supreme Court slow roll its decision on presidential immunity. A lot of Americans feel that there's no recourse. We're just sitting back, just watching this thing play out. Put that in context for us if you can. I mean, you've done some excellent reporting and coverage on this from the very, very beginning. And I sense have a feel for how this is translating for a lot of the American people outside of the bubble of either side, the Trump MAGA world and those who want to see him go down. Real people out there are concerned about how this is playing out.
Real people are definitely concerned, and I think one of the things, Michael, that real people are seeing is that
It's got
is
silk
the
touch,
decision
so
in some cases that the delay
it's not
occasioned
breaking
by,
them
for example,
properly.
the Supreme Court not taking Jack Smith's invitation to have an appeal directly on presidential immunity, but instead hold it off until the DC Circuit acted, and then not expediting briefing, but really taking their time with the case, or Judge Cannon slow walking all of the motions that continue to pile up before her. That in and of itself constitutes a real decision that folks are concerned about. And I think the other thing that folks are concerned about is, of course, these people have lifetime tenure and there is no recourse for delay. You can't appeal delay, nor can you ask for a recusal based on delay alone. In fact, the 11th Circuit has recently been inundated with complaints from people in the public who said, you should remove Judge Cannon from this case based on the fact that she is failing to take action. And in a very short order, the Chief Judge of the Circuit, Bill Pryor, said, look, delay is not, under our rules, a basis for getting somebody out of a decision, getting someone out of a case. So I think the American people, if they are concerned about these kinds of delay, they are the ones that can take action. Only their choices at the ballot box can start to reverse some of what we see as delay actually resulting in almost a decision in the former president's favor. The only way to reverse this is for the people to take action themselves and elect a president who will appoint judges who will consider the rule of law and take it seriously.
Yeah, we're at a point, Lisa, where, we're talking about presidents appointing judges who would consider the rule of law. Tells you a lot about the times. Andrew Weissman, Lisa Rubin, thank you both very, very much. Appreciate it.
Where is that hole in the wall?
Tonight's state of emergency. Americans grappling with the effects of a deadly tropical storm, dangerous heat, and raging wildfires. Millions along the Texas coast remain on high alert as Alberto leaves a destructive mark. The storm battering Mexico, leaving
I shouldn't be out here in the dark.
Further east, a relentless heat wave smothering 80 million people in unbearable temperatures. At this hour, severe storms charging across the region, the deadly wildfires plaguing New Mexico. Tonight, the mayor of Rio Doso speaking with Top Story after residents there were forced to flee their homes to escape the flames. And the massive dust storm blinding drivers near Albuquerque, causing a major pileup. Also tonight, fit to judge, the alarming new reporting from the New York Times, the judge in Trump's classified documents case urged to step aside before the case began. The growing scrutiny Judge Eileen Cannon faces as the legal battle hangs in the balance. TikTok slamming the U.S. as it fights a potential ban on the popular app. The company arguing the Biden administration's sale or ban law sets a dangerous precedent. Do they have a case, and when could the possible ban take effect? China's pirate attacked a shocking video of an armed confrontation in the South China Sea. The Chinese Coast Guard brandishing knives and axes as they circle a Filipino naval fleet. One guard seen slashing a Filipino vessel. The chaotic moments as tensions escalate in the region. A brazen hit and run caught on camera. The disturbing video as a driver mows down two cyclists out on a group ride. We'll hear from the cyclist who miraculously survived being run over. Weight loss drug warning. Health officials sounding the alarm on fake versions of popular weight loss medications. The insane demand prompting a
Okay, it's over there.
options, posing a serious health risk. Plus, whales escape war. A Ukraine aquarium caught in the crossfire of Russia's unrelenting assault. The incredible plan to rescue 2 beluga whales and the harrowing journey to their new habitat. And the inspiring story of an Iraq War vet working to overcome trauma through music. His remarkable debut on one of the most iconic stages. Top Story starts
A
right
trident. What? Don't get me yet. Come on.
Good evening, I'm Ellison Barber in for Tom Yamas. Tonight tonight, extreme weather continues to ravage millions across the U.S. Parts of Texas still reeling from what was Tropical Storm Alberto. A dangerous
Oh, you
heat
bad
wave
guys are in
scorches
here.
and wildfires continue to burn out of control out west.
Maybe he
Beach
won't
towns
notice
along
me.
the Texas coast
Oh
still
my gosh.
underwater after the first named storm of the
Maybe he
hurricane
won't
season
notice me either.
pounded that region. Tropical storm Alberto made landfall in Mexico this morning.
Well, I thought
The storm
perhaps I
leaving
might
4
find
people
some.
dead as it slams the country with heavy rain and intense flooding. Right now, 82
Well,
million
that
continue
didn't
to
work.
grapple with record-breaking temperatures, and it could get worse tomorrow. The heat index for several cities, including New York, will approach triple digits. Adding insult to injury, tonight's severe storms could rumble through parts of the plains and the Northeast. Millions at risk for thunderstorms, damaging wind gusts, and hail. And massive wildfires that
Want some
continue to burn
dripstone.
in southern New Mexico. At least 2 people were killed and thousands forced to evacuate in a moment's notice. The village of Rio Doso hit particularly hard. Cars and homes just completely destroyed. Tonight, we speak with the mayor about what it's like on the ground and when people will be able to return home. The whipping winds fueling that fire also triggering this dust storm near Albuquerque. Low visibility leading to a massive pileup, leaving more than a dozen people injured. We are tracking it all tonight. Bill Cairns is standing by to time it out. But first, NBC News correspondent Sam Brock leads us off.
On the first day of summer,
Hmm,
it's fire and rain across America, with Surfside Beach, Texas, still soaked from the far sweep of Tropical Storm Alberto, which made landfall in Mexico earlier today.
It's really weird looking out your living room window and just seeing water.
Yeah, everywhere. Driving around this Texas town, you see palm trees protruding from pools of water, and vacationers perched on decks, like Erica Fine, unable to retrieve her car.
We're waiting for high tide to go down to drive through.
So current status is trapped.
Yeah, we're just a little bit stranded.
The storm leaving a wake of damage along Texas's coastline, with a tornado ripping his roof in Rockport.
It was all over.
While floodwaters remain in Surfside Beach.
We thought everything was going to be clearing up pretty good this morning, but around 5:30, high tide hit and the storm surge came back in, and we were right back to where we were yesterday.
Record-breaking heat elsewhere in the U.S., living up to the term summer solstice.
Very, very hot.
Some schools have had to postpone classes as 65 million bake in high 90s at triple-digit temps. In Bangor, Maine, the heat index climbing to 106, while a combination of flames and dust storms called a haboob have wreaked havoc in New Mexico. Tonight, the White House approving a major disaster declaration. Now, with rain on the way, flooding concerns around the burn scars. The country's patience for trying conditions being tested, even as some take solace in how their neighbors, first responders, are coming together.
This little community here really stays in touch in times of need like this.
And Sam Brock joins us now from Freeport, Texas. Sam, talk to us about that flooding. You were standing in it there. How long is this flooding threat expected to last? And what will recovery look like as the days ahead come?
Sure, Elson. So there's a flood warning in effect that expires very shortly, but then there's
This is
a
my
flood
other house.
advisory through tomorrow. Then this
And you know
hopefully
what's
is in the
upstairs?
clear.
I believe.
We're days removed now from Alberto's effects. Why would there be
I believe
a
we
flood
have.
advisory for tomorrow? It's because of this, not just storm surge, but the high tide when it comes in the morning.
I think we have a
Wasn't cleared up previously. Neighbors told me
thing up
we thought
here.
we were good to go, and then woke up and found this again.
No, we
Look
need the
across
end
street
of
from
it.
where I'm standing right now. This is again 48 hours removed from the effects, and the water spans all the way across the street. It's still a lagoon covering properties on both sides. It's just not a typical thing. It was a fascinating conversation to have with the mayor here of Surfside Beach, who told me, look, we obviously see hurricanes and plan and know how they the cadence of how they come in and out. It's quick. With tropical storms, it's more confusing. You don't necessarily know how that combination of storm surge and rain is really going to play out. And here we are again, standing
Look
here
at all
with
this.
standing water next
Wow,
to me. The community's going to be
nice.
fine. Many people have not really experienced much by way of damage. Certainly not tens of thousands or millions of dollars.
But no
worth of
diamonds
damage.
there.
So, and from a financial perspective, they're going to be okay. From a headache perspective,
Let's go to the other
it's
house
still
and
high
see.
because we know there could be another tropical system that may have impacts here as well in about a week. Back to you.
Sam Brock, thank you. As Sam mentioned in his reporting, deadly wildfires, they
That's
have
a bad
hit
guy
New
over there, I
Mexico, and
believe.
the state is now bracing for storms and possible flash flooding. In hard-hit Rio
Oh, it's a
Doso,
cow.
thousands of residents have been evacuated and hundreds of structures have been destroyed. Now that town is bracing for heavy rain. Tonight we are joined by the mayor of Rio Doso, Mayor Lynn Crawford. Mayor, thank you so much for joining Top Story. We are so sorry to see what your community is dealing with and having to go through right now. Talk to us about what's happening with both the Salt and South Fork fires. 0% contained as of today. Is that still the case?
Thank you, Ellison. Yes, that is still the case. We have well over 800 firefighters on the ground that are actually actively working on the fire as we speak. The salt fire has been somewhat subdued. It's still not contained. The fire on South Fork is a different story. Of course, that's the one that ravaged through our
Okay.
community, destroying well over 1,400 structures. Many of
So
those
I
homes.
need some obsidian.
We still are in the area doing recon. We have the gas company making sure all the gas facilities are turned off, the electrical facilities. And just in now with the General and the National Guard, we have a heavy presence, police, sheriff's offices around. The outreach from the surrounding states and communities.
Hey there.
has been remarkable.
Hello.
Hello.
Do we have any indication right now as to how or why these fires started?
Well, it would be just guesswork on my part. I know that there's some investigation into it. We were first alerted that it was possibly lightning strikes, but now that we hear otherwise, so we'll wait for the investigators to tell us about that. Right now, we're really concerned with fighting the fire, and we have catastrophic flood watch that we're under. So that says all that you need to know in the name, and so we're prepared for that right now. We're still fully evacuated. And we're still hoping that citizens and people that come in look either one, that they stay out. And we're enforcing that because I think that we've already had really bad and we don't want it to get really worse with loss of life.
You mentioned the rain that could be coming. I mean, a lot of people would hear flash flooding, rain, heavy rain, and think, okay, wait, isn't that good if there are fires? But that's actually not the case, right? Could you explain to people why this combination is really not good?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, anybody that's ever been around a campfire, when you get up the next morning and you see the ashes, if you've ever thrown cold coffee or water on it, you see how it just splashes. The soil is hydrophobic, so it doesn't take on water, so it just runs right over the top. Gathering steam, it just pulls the ash, the debris with it, and it clogs culverts, it takes out bridges. And we had this happen in 2008 with Hurricane Dolly. And so we're told to be expecting the same kind of damage to this storm. And so we've got all the kind of assets, the resources at our disposal.
I only have
And we're
18.
just waiting for the event to happen.
You mentioned the National
think I
Guard
can
is
even-
there helping and trying to help fight these fires, among other things.
Now,
you
do we
believe
have
that
a-
you are getting the help that you need from state authorities, other local authorities, and even the federal government? Or do you and your
Isn't
community
this a
need more
cute
help?
little place?
Absolutely. When this fire kicked off Monday morning, we called an emergency
What a
council
lot of
meeting where we
cows.
had an emergency declaration. Sent it to the governor's office. She swiftly signed it. Sent it to the
I have an
president.
infinite
The
lava
president
base
signed
here.
off on it today. And so with that comes resources allocation.
Maybe
money.
there's dripstone in the.
Of course, the local entities, the county, the surrounding counties, the tri-state area have all been helping. We're getting all kinds of food, water donations. And we're looking for monetary donations
See.
as well. And so a lot of those things are helping, but the state to this point has been great, sending in all the things that we need. Also from the federal, FEMA will be coming
No
in. We have a lot of
dripstone.
delegates coming in to actually view the damage so they can understand just the devastation
No
that we're
obsidian.
working with and the severity of the needs that we're going to have in the coming future. We've already started with the recovery efforts, planning, things of that nature. So I know that our community, our citizens are really
What?
anxious to get back to work.
It is. I know, it's so good though. You're right.
And it could intensify later this evening and tomorrow for sure. Just trust us, the staff, the people that we've called in to help us are all experts.
At least I have a culture of
and we're doing the
bacteria.
best we can, and we're making progress.
Yeah, protecting life is, of course, the most important thing. I hope your community there will continue to heed your warnings. Mayor Lynn Crawford from Rio Doso, thank you so very much for being with us tonight. We wish you and your community the best, and we hope you will stay in touch as this process moves ahead. Thank you.
So, as
We
an
appreciate
old person,
Hmm.
Thank
do
you,
you
Allison.
feel like you're gonna work
All right, we have a
hard?
lot of weather headlines tonight, so let's turn now to NBC News.
out
Meteor-
here old? I'm free from children.
I'm sorry? Am I going to work hard?
Yeah, at least from old.
At doing what?
What's the plan?
What's
Are
the
you
plan?
retired? Or are you going to be productive? I'm just wondering because, like, productivity is cool.
I like productivity.
I guess you are productive. I'll shut up. I'm playing Dota, but it's fun.
As long as I can, as long as I can move and have ideas. Like I've been making soap. I've made 4 batches of soap. See that bookcase? So yeah. I think I might be productive in different ways as time goes on. Like I might write a book. But then I'd have to start.
I think you've written a lot already.
I've probably written enough to move on. Well, this year, I plan to harvest
I'm not trying to stop you.
this year I plan to harvest the grass down there, and I'm gonna thatch that iceberg pond teepee. Gonna thatch it. Gonna make just a roof thatch, just over the top. That's one thing I'm gonna do. But right now I'm searching for obsidian. I may have to I have to find some dripstone. I don't remember which cave has dripstone in it.
That's going to take a long time to get your stuff.
To do what?
Well, I do know a cave. If you really want to, like, go on a journey.
Do you know, is it got a, okay, where is it?
Well, one of those command blocks, if you go through it,
Okay.
comes out to a dripstone place.
Oh, so I have to go back to the main base.
Yeah,
And it's probably the first strips.
yeah, it's the first one.
Okay.
And I don't know, but like if you go down, there's some ways to go down, I'm sure.
Okay.
I know I have one somewhere. I can't remember. But there's tunnels to go down. And it's scary because there's wardens.
Oh,
Maybe
that
this
one.
is not dripstone. Maybe this is wardens. But I think there's a lot of dripstone too.
I have so much dripstone in one of my boxes somewhere. But I have no idea which box and where that would be. Chest.
Well, good luck finding it.
I know I only have like 50 houses to check.
Yep. Minecrafting's fun. Yeah, I'm gonna go play more Dota.
Okay, hope you win. Hey, what are you guys doing out here? Okay, we'll go out this way. Now we'll feed everybody first. Then we'll wipe them out. Now I should get some credits for doing this, shouldn't I? Those little green things. Did I get the green things? I seem to be running too fast. It's giving me a bit of a head problem. Okay, now we'll go out this way and we'll feed these guys. Hey everybody, look at what I got. I don't know why I haven't cut this tree down yet. Oops, I need more food. Hold everything. I think I have too many things to bounce over. Now food should be right by that door, but it isn't. Rocks, wood, nature. Everybody's been fed, eh? To market, to buy a fat pig. Home again. Jig, jig, jig. See, I'm getting all this experience. These little green dots floating my way. I'm up to 22 now. I was at 18 when I got here. You should have stayed hidden in the corner. home again, jig, jig, jig. To market, to buy that hog. Jig, home again, jig, jig, jog. Oops. There we go. Hmm. Okay. Everybody back in their pen. No, I don't want that there. I want it here. No, I don't want you to come out. Go back in. Go on. Go back in. Okay, and chicken, I don't care what you want to do. Okay. Stop. Get out of the way. Okay, here you go. Up you go. And go back in your pen with everybody else. And you can walk that way too. There you go. Oh, don't go that way. Here, go this way. Go that way. Run back to your house. That's right. There, you're safe now. Go on. Go that way. Run that way. Yeah, that's right. Okay, now you're safe. Safe from me. Okay, now then. Get. Go on. Go. 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 No, don't come out. Okay, now. Go on. Okay, now I want that one. Okay. There. Life is good. There. Now you're all locked in. How lovely is that? Oops. There we go. Don't get stuck in the door, you silly goose. Okay, there we go. Now, what have I got in my hand that needs to be moved? let's put some automatic door shutting stuff here, okay? Alright, so we'll take nature. What can go in there? Apples, trees, crops. Okay. So, let's put our pressure plates down. Hurry, 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 put it in, put it in. There. There. That's good. Now, let's just check for dripstone, in case I put it in the wrong place. Look at all that leather. Wow. I'm going to take that with me, because I got a lot of possibilities right here. Take my food with me too. Seeds. Look at all those seeds. Nature. Wood. We can leave the gate here. I should probably put the coal in here too. Coal. Where's and chicken? There's no chicken in there. Coal, coal, coal. Okay. We still need some dripstone. Trying to remember if I have dripstone this way. Labyrinth base. No. The Deco Pond base was close to where I want to go. Discovery Isle, Mount Isim. Oh, that's not up there. There, it's the control, not the shift. Mom's cheery base. Hello, hello.
No, the wind so strong, my zucchini falling, right?
You know, those zucchinis, they grow to this big. If you
Yeah, because the zucchini falling, broken.
Right.
The tree.
Oh,
the
those broke
broken.
off? Oh.
Yeah. So I think it's
Oh. That's too bad.
very fast because the zucchini very big now.
And did it break and die?
Yeah, I'm not so die, but breaking try.
Yeah. Oh.
It's like that because the tree, the wind so strong, and the tree has some, the plant has some crack.
It's cracked?
Yeah.
Oh, that's too bad.
Yeah.
So sad, so sad. 1. 2. 3. 4. Well, that's all I need for my enchantment table. Oops. That one should be enchanted. Where is our enchantment table from here? Well, I don't have enough yet. I've only got 23. But still, it should be enchanted.
It rotted peanut.
The peanuts?
Yeah, it rotted. Rotted.
It's rotten? Roasted.
Yeah, rotted.
Yes, yes, they're very good. I tasted some.
Some of them to burn. Yeah, and eaten.
Oh well. Dinner's not ready till the smoke alarm goes off. I think I'm gonna go get rid of this guy. If that's possible. Well, look at that. It was, but he didn't leave anything. You have to wear gold for him to drop something, right? Okay, buckets filled up. Hi, Willem.
I'm back.
You're back. Did you take a rest?
No. I went through some genealogy records.
Mm-hmm.
The wildfires in New Mexico, not going to be helped by these high temperatures that we've been seeing. There's the possibility of rain. Just give us a breakdown. Where do things stand in terms of the heat?
Yeah, I don't know anything. We talked specifically about what happened with so with fires, and then we've seen that before in this country, but I've never seen an evacuated town under a flash flood emergency before. Only 48 hours after they evacuated. That's what's so unique and just so incredibly disheartening about this event for that city and that town. So where do we go from here? They've actually cooled down. They're worried about rain. That's not a fire situation in areas of New Mexico. But the heat is back on in areas of Arizona and California. You just saw the 112 right now at this hour in Phoenix. We got 27 million people in California and Arizona under heat advisories. And then, of course, we're still dealing with the heat wave all the way on the other side of the country that continues from Ohio all the way through southern New England. Yeah, we have finally gotten some relief in Boston, New Hampshire, and Maine. The cold front, storms, much cooler conditions. But tomorrow, the heat is on DC to New York. So now the heat shifts to the south. And as we head through the upcoming weekend, record highs are likely. Washington, D.C., it should hit 100 degrees, break a record on Sunday, and upper 90s all through the Ohio, Tennessee River Valley into the southern Ohio Valley. So this heat wave's not going anywhere.
And Bill, the Northeast is also under an alert for severe thunderstorms. What should we be expecting in this region?
Yeah, so that's good. We got our relief from the heat because of these storms. With it has come some significant wind damage. Severe thunderstorm watch continues. These are pretty strong storms down northern Massachusetts, heading through southern New Hampshire. We're going to have to wait and see if these hold together and head back down through Boston. And then the other concern, Allison, very heavy rain tonight.
negotiated.
Thank you so
Turning
much.
out that multi-state manhunt suspect in a string of murders in Arkansas, Oklahoma,
Alright, I don't want to hear this.
now in custody.
Okay.
NBC's Priya Shreve.
What is this about? Business basics, they're generally pretty good, aren't they? I don't think I've heard
The
much.
future of clean energy seems to be in the hands of China, and no other country is even close to what China is doing.
Chinese car companies are the most competitive car companies in the world. I think they will have significant success outside of China, depending on what tariffs or trade barriers are established. Right? I think if there are not trade barriers established, they will pretty much demolish most other car companies in the world.
It scares me to say this, but if China continues on this path, and if the world doesn't do anything about it, almost every country will become dependent on China, and the control China would have is something no one could imagine. Well, this is what the facts say, at least.
As the world starts to turn away from fossil fuels, China is positioning itself as the king of clean energy, not only transforming its own energy system, but also building a supply chain that could leave the world uncomfortably dependent on China.
China has really expanded its grip, so it's the processing, it's the manufacturing, it's all the way down to your EVs and your battery packs.
China dominates over 80% of the manufacturing stages for solar panels, controls 58% of the global EV market, and has control of literally every part of the manufacturing process. In fact, 99% of the global production capacity is one of the key parts of solar panels, known as the wafer, is located in China. China dominated the global solar energy market not for one, not two, but for 10 years in a row. And the story doesn't end here. The Chinese car maker BYD overtook Tesla as the world's top-selling electric car maker in 2023. And Chinese EV manufacturers are overtaking European EV manufacturers by storm. Even the investing goat, Mr. Warren Buffett himself, chose BYD over Tesla to invest $232 million in 2008, which grew to $8 billion as of 2022. But the by hook or by crook method of gaining market leadership has backfired severely. China has suffered significant repercussions and might continue to suffer in the future too. So in this video, let's understand three things. One, how has China gained such an extraordinary dominance in the solar energy and EV markets? Two, how could this dominance become a huge threat to the world? And three, what are other countries doing to break this dominance? Okay, let's begin. On the 12th of December 2015, during COP21, or the 21st Conference of Parties held in France, the Paris Climate Change Agreement was introduced.
A record number of countries signed the historic Paris Accord to slow global warming. China and the United States, the world's top producers of greenhouse gas emissions, pledged to formally adopt the deal by the end of the year.
This was finally done because emissions have reached dangerous levels. So much so that emissions after 2020 have more than tripled since the 1940s. This is the reason why 195 parties made up of 194 countries, plus the European Union, have signed an agreement to limit the temperature rise to just 2 degrees Celsius and possibly even 1.5 degrees Celsius. On top of that, the world will soon run out of fossil fuels.
2.0 is going to be too high.
If the world continues to consume these resources at the current rate, coal will last just for the next 114 years, oil for the next 51 years, and natural gas for the next 53 years. Also, developed countries like the US, Britain, Canada, and Japan have set their zero emissions targets by 2050. China has set it by 2060 and India by 2070. This is the reason why countries are focusing on renewable sources of energy for their energy needs. Now let's see why solar panels and EVs have a critical role to play in it, and how the Chinese government and Chinese companies worked together to gain extraordinary dominance.
Oh, look, I already
in
have
space.
an extra enchanting
Although,
table.
admittedly, this dominance has decreased. And it will continue to decrease significantly in the future because of the multiple steps other countries have started taking towards it. We will discuss that shortly, but before, let's see why solar energy is such a big deal. So, there are 5 major sources of renewable energy.
You know, when I leave that down, I'll take this.
Wind energy, solar power, bioenergy, and geothermal power. As of 2020, hydropower accounted for 54% of the global renewable power generation capacity. Wind energy with approximately 24% of the world's total renewable energy generation capacity, and with around 486 gigawatts of installed capacity, solar panels grab the 3rd spot. Now, you may ask, if hydropower and wind energy are already the bosses, then why is the world crazy about solar energy? And what is the problem with China being the biggest player in this space? It doesn't have that much to gain because the world already has the resources to produce energy from wind and water, right? And truthfully, even I was kind of thinking the same thing. But upon further research, I found some stats and figures that absolutely blew my mind. From 2015 to 2020, the annual growth rate of cumulative solar energy has grown by an average rate of 25%, making it the fastest growing renewable power source in the world. According to the International Energy Agency, as of 2028, renewable energy sources are expected to account for over 42% of global energy generation, with energy generation from wind and solar together projected to double to 25% compared to 13% in 2023. So, the global solar panels market will keep on growing. It's expected to increase by 10-fold by 2030 in order to reach the objectives of the Paris Climate Agreement. Hydropower, on the other hand, has seen a decline over the years. The share of hydropower, which was once at 16.9% in the year 2000, has actually fallen to 14.2% in 2023, and is expected to keep falling to 13.9% by 2028. This is because of the dark side of hydropower.
Oh,
As
no.
dams and reservoirs disrupt river ecosystems and surrounding habitats. And recent studies show that reservoirs can emit more CO2 and methane than previously understood.
Building a hydropower plant is expensive. It has several environmental consequences, and it is geographically dependent. For example, hydropower plants cannot be set up in the Sahara Desert because of a lack of water resources in the region. Solar panels, on the other hand, are eco-friendly, can be used anywhere, and can be harnessed in remote locations. They don't require much space. And most importantly, they are extremely cost-efficient. The costs of producing energy are also a big reason behind countries choosing solar energy. If we look at the average cost to produce energy from 2009 to 2019, we have some very interesting figures. In 2009, the cost of electricity from coal was $111 per megawatt hour. The cost from nuclear was $123 per megawatt hour. The cost from wind was $135 per megawatt hour. From solar, it was a mind-boggling $359 per megawatt hour. But a decade later, in 2019, these figures changed completely, and this is what it looked like. In 2019, the cost of electricity from coal dropped by just 3% to $109 per megawatt hour. The cost from nuclear increased 26% to $155 per megawatt hour. From wind, it dropped by 70% to just $41 per megawatt hour. And the cost from solar dropped by a huge extent to just $40 per megawatt hour. That is an 89% drop in price. Later, it even dropped to $37 per megawatt hour in 2020. These prices are expected to drop further as the demand for solar will keep growing, and it remains a top priority for the majority of countries. In the case of EVs, the prices for 2023 have declined from 5 to 40% as compared to prices in 2022. And in the case of China, the prices have even halved during the last 8 years. Now, if you're curious about the huge price drop that happened, hang on, we'll get to the answer in a few minutes. By now, you know the reason why countries are doubling down on solar energy. And this is where China comes into the picture.
Now, China controls over 80% of the global solar panel supply chain and of the world's top 10 largest solar manufacturers.
When I mentioned earlier that China controls every part of the solar cells manufacturing process, I mean it. Just like every other product, a solar panel is made from multiple different components. Here's what a solar panel looks like. But to achieve this end result, it has to go through 4 key stages in the manufacturing process. First, metallurgic-grade silicon is turned into a material called polysilicon. This is later converted into cylindrical-shaped structures called ingots. These ingots are turned into silicon wafers, which later are then used to manufacture solar cells. And finally, multiple solar cells are arranged together to get the final product that we call a solar panel. The shocking fact here is that China controls not 1, not 2, but all 4 of these critical stages of solar panel manufacturing, to such an extent that no one could have imagined.
So what's a
Firstly, when it comes
silicon?
to
Is that the
metallurgical-grade
first?
silicon, China controls almost 71% of the production in the entire world, with other players like Russia contributing around 7%, and the United States, Brazil, and Norway each producing 4% of the silicon. And these numbers are nowhere near what China is doing. In the next stage, when it comes to manufacturing polysilicon, China controlled 79% of the market share in 2021, which later increased to 86% in 2022. Here, too, other countries have very meager stakes, with Europe and the U.S. having 4% of polysilicon capacities, South Korea and Japan with 1% capacity, and other regions with the remaining 4%. In the case of silicon wafers, China, which had control over 72% of the global production capacity, has now increased to a whopping 99% as of 2022, with the remaining 1% capacity mostly located in other Asian countries. But China didn't just stop here. In terms of cell manufacturing capacities, as of 2012, China controlled 50% of it. But shockingly, in 2022, this has increased to 86%, with Europe left with just 10% and other regions of the world with just around 4%. These cells, once manufactured, are assembled to get solar panels. And again, as of 2022, here too, China controls 80% of the module manufacturing capacity. China even goes further by gaining a monopoly in the inverter space too, because it's the inverter that converts DC into AC, which is the standard current. So as of 2021, China alone ships 72% of the global shipments to the world. On top of that, the creation of aluminum and steel frames that are used to mount solar panels is also concentrated in China. So now you see how deep China's hold in the solar manufacturing sector really is. But do you see the burning issue here? The entire value chain is literally dominated by a country that claims territories of other nations as its region, that bullies smaller countries for showing resistance, and openly threatens other countries to exert its own dominance. So if China decides to stop supplying or puts restrictions on the critical elements of the solar panel value chain, then countries will have no option but to buy the same equipment at much higher prices. And with the current pace at which the solar energy market is growing, the country that messes up their relationship with China either has to pay multiple millions extra to produce solar equipment, or else they would have no option but to go for the traditional options. And when I say this, I'm not just assuming these repercussions, because China has done similar things in the past. For example, take one of the battles between the US and China's tech wars. China recently restricted the exports of gallium and germanium, one of the key metals used in semiconductors and solar panels. According to this policy from August 1st, 2023, China made it mandatory for its exporters to obtain an export license to export these two metals. This made it more difficult for the exporters to supply these metals. And on the other side, it made it difficult for the manufacturers, partially in the solar and semiconductor space. Why? Because China produces 60% of the world's germanium and 80 to 90% of the world's gallium. And guess what? China announced this restriction on July 3rd, a month before it actually implemented it. But surprisingly, even before the restriction came into force, the prices of gallium shot up by 30% in just 9 days, going from around $250 to $265 per kilogram at the start of July to around $302 to $360 per kilogram on July 12th. This was the perfect example of how China uses its dominance to retaliate against someone who opposes it. So considering these situations, you can assume that no country would like to mess with China, right? But the question still remains the same. Despite so many technologically advanced nations how did China manage to gain such a significant dominance in an important space like solar energy? I mean, this obviously wasn't like the Chinese elections where you just have one party as an option to vote for. Companies from other countries were also free to compete in this space. In fact, other countries were also doing well in this space. For example, in 2005, Europeans were leading the solar manufacturing race, with Germany accounting for 1/5 of global solar manufacturing. By 2010, while Europe installed 8 out of every 10 solar panels in the world, it produced only 1. Now in 2023, China will make 8 out of every 10 solar panels worldwide and add 5 of those to its grid and export most of the remaining ones. So the question is, why did other countries fail when China succeeded? This is where the master plan of China comes in. It wasn't just Chinese companies who did it alone. Both Chinese companies and the Chinese government worked together to achieve this monopoly. They did this not just for the value chain of solar panels, but also for EV batteries and, later on, EVs themselves. So, there are multiple reasons why Chinese manufacturers have an edge over manufacturers from other countries. This edge over other players in the industry would stay with China for the next several years, or even decades in unfortunate cases. The reasons for China's remarkable success in this field are the same reasons as those that have made it the leading manufacturing hub worldwide. These are low-cost capital, rapid regulatory approvals, protection from foreign competition, low labor costs, an unparalleled network of suppliers, and fast-growing domestic demand. Also, Chinese manufacturers benefited from subsidies and very advantageous electricity prices in some regions. So the government's support has played a pivotal role in the thriving of the solar industry. For example, in December of 2020, China removed restrictions on PV glass production because the demand for PV glass, or photovoltaic glass, was skyrocketing. But due to the restrictions imposed on the amount of glass that could be produced, the supply was very low. As a result, the spot prices of glass, meaning the current prices at which the glass can be bought or sold at a particular place in time, started skyrocketing, reaching from $3.2 per square meter in Q2 of 2020 to almost $7 per square meter in the fourth quarter of 2020. But once the restrictions were lifted in December of 2020, glass prices started decreasing and hit a bottom of almost $3 per square meter in the second quarter of 2021. And from then onwards has stabilized to around $4 per square meter. Achieving dominance in polysilicon production was a challenge for China. This was because polysilicon production requires heavy chemical industrial processes, which require complex technical knowledge. Reaching high purity levels in manufacturing is also challenging. This is the reason why this step in the solar value chain was the last one China targeted as part of its strategy to reach industrial independence in the solar manufacturing space. For a long time, a Germany-based company, Wacker Chemie, was one of the top suppliers in the world because they had the technical know-how in the space. In fact, in a 2004 report, I found no Chinese companies even in the top 7 polysilicon manufacturers. And the first 2 spots were secured by a U.S. company, Hemlock, and the German Wacker Chemie, respectively. In fact, in 2016, the Wacker Chemie AG even became the world's largest manufacturer of polysilicon and maintained the top spot till 2019. Fast forward to 2022, the top 4 players in polysilicon are from China. And Wacker Chemie, the company that once held the top spot, slipped to the 5th spot. And the U.S. manufacturer Hemlock slipped to the 9th spot. The question is, how did China achieve this? This is where the story of the Chinese firm Global Concord Group Limited, or GCL, comes into the picture. This Chinese firm was one of the top polysilicon manufacturers in the world. But as the tech of solar panels evolved, the demand for polysilicon of higher purity began to rise in 2015. And Germany's Wacker Chemie was perfectly placed to benefit from this demand. But then China's GCL did something crazy to beat the German giant. GCL, which was already a polysilicon manufacturer, decided to manufacture polysilicon of higher purity. Because earlier, like most of the Chinese firms, it was producing low quality and less pure polysilicon. But in 2018, GCL built a new 48,000 MT capacity polysilicon plant in the Xinjiang province of China. This new polysilicon plant had been designed to produce high purity material.
Okay.
On top of that, the Chinese state-owned entity, China Development Bank Corporation, decided to provide financial support to GCL. According to an agreement signed between them in June of 2011, the China Development Bank decided to provide financial support to GCL's domestic and overseas investment projects in foreign currency and renminbi in the next 5 years to fulfill the capacity requirements of GCL for its future development. Also, by obtaining electricity from a nearby coal-fired power plant at a very low tariff, GCL was able to produce the required polysilicon at much lower costs in Xinjiang than it did in other regions. This is because electricity prices play a critical role in polysilicon manufacturing. After all, electricity accounts for 40% of polysilicon's production cost. This is the reason why the average electricity prices are $75 per megawatt hour, which is almost 30% below the global average. Now, this is not too environmentally friendly for China, because coal, the dirtiest of fossil fuels, accounts for 77% of power generation in the Xinjiang region, where the most energy-intensive step in the solar panel manufacturing process, polysilicon refining, is concentrated. This consumption of coal in China led to 30% more greenhouse gas emissions compared to if this supply chain were in the US. So even though China is making something that would protect the environment, the method of production in China in itself is not very environmentally friendly. But anyways, this worked for China. Considering other factors, we shouldn't forget the labor costs in China. The average labor costs in China are around $6, while in the US it is around $25 to $30, and in Europe it's around $33. It's not just costs. Chinese factories also work to improve their efficiency and reduce costs. For example, they used new tools to slice thinner polysilicon wafers with less waste, thus producing more solar cells from the same amount of raw material. This innovation alone helped lower costs by 80%. All these factors, particularly cheap electricity prices, made China's Xinjiang province the hub of polysilicon manufacturing. As of 2022, Xinjiang alone accounts for around 40% of global polysilicon manufacturing. This is the reason why polysilicon made outside of China is priced at $7 to $10 per kilogram higher than Chinese polysilicon. It's equivalent to about double the price. As a result of these cheap prices, most of these solar panel manufacturers prefer Chinese polysilicon because this decreases their module manufacturing costs by 10 to 20%. So subsidies, subsidized energy prices, and government support to Chinese companies made China the most dominant player in the polysilicon space. And as we saw, it controls 86% of the global polysilicon manufacturing capacity as of 2022. Similarly, other Chinese companies like Trina Solar, Suntech, and LONGi Green Energy Technology Company are a few of the examples that became one of the biggest players in the solar manufacturing space. LONGi Green Energy Technology Company is another monopoly, but in wafer production. This company has a similar story as almost every other Chinese manufacturer. It started in 2000, initially importing expensive silicon to manufacture solar cells, and later decided to develop its own monocrystalline wafers production by getting on the government subsidies. Currently, LONGi Green Energy Technology Company is the world's largest producer of solar wafers, manufacturing 1 out of every 4 wafers produced globally. China also made sure its companies survived even in times of crisis. For example, when companies started failing after the 2008 recession, a Chinese state-owned bank, China Development Bank, or CDB, provided $43.2 billion to 15 solar companies in 2010, which supported them despite global uncertainty. State credit was also used to upgrade capabilities through continued capacity expansion or acquisition. It also provided a second round of lending in 2012 to ensure that its big players like Trina Solar and Suntech stayed in business. On top of that, about 10% of funding to China's national R&D programs was allocated just to energy research. Also, state and local governments provided funds to national programs, not only to develop new technologies, but also to commercialize and export it. Taking advantage of these incentives, the leading solar companies started to engage in their R&D to upgrade their products and production. In another case, China was importing expensive raw materials like silicon for solar manufacturing. But later, Chinese companies received support from favorable government policies to produce raw silicon locally. And later, the CCP's Ministry of Science and Technology especially mentioned the development of silicon refinement technology in its 11th five-year plan, which was from 2006 to 2010. Additionally, China has spent more than $50 billion in loans and tax incentives in the solar manufacturing space. This is how the Chinese companies and their governments work together in the solar manufacturing space. But every coin has two sides. And in this case, it's the supply and the demand side. So China also made sure to keep up with the demand side. One of the major and earliest programs was the 1996 Brightness Program, which was an international effort designed to bring electricity to rural areas. This was introduced during the 1996 World Solar Peak Conference in Zimbabwe. China aimed to provide wind and solar-generated electricity to around 23 million people living in remote areas. Since then, China's State Council has allocated around $50 million, or around 400 million Chinese yuan, in its fifth five-year plan period, which was from 2001 to 2005, to support the Brightness Program. Another project called the Township Electrification Program, which was worth 2 billion Chinese yuan, was implemented from 2001 to 2003, and was aimed at electrifying more than 1,000 towns in remote areas using renewable energy sources like solar, wind, or hybrid systems. Similar projects added to the demand side and made sure that Chinese manufacturers don't just rely on exports. Additionally, the feed-in tariffs, where the government was itself buying power from these solar developers at guaranteed prices. So price fluctuations didn't affect these solar power producers since they were always getting fixed prices. Considering all
No,
the
I fell in
support,
the lava.
solar installations went crazy. From
I
just
know.
2.5 gigawatts of cumulative installation in 2011 to around 130 gigawatts in 2018. So in this case, the government itself became the consumer. Although China has been reducing feed-in tariffs and slashing other subsidies to a great extent since 2017 and 2018. But anyway, these subsidies did their job and made China the largest consumer of solar energy. As of 2022, China has 37.5% of the world's solar energy installed capacity. This equation of demand and supply increased the demand for solar panels, and as a result, it decreased the price of solar panels to a large extent. And this helped Chinese companies beat other solar companies in the pricing of solar modules. For example, according to a report, a solar module made in China is half the price of that made in Europe, and 65% less than that made in the US. And
Thank you.
in EVs, China did the same. It incentivized both the manufacturers and the buyers in China. But in the case of EVs, there's one critical component that can literally make or break an EV maker, no matter how big or small. The critical component I'm talking about is the EV battery and the supply chain of the materials used in it. So, just like the traditional vehicle industry is dependent on the supply chain of crude oil, the EV industry is dependent on batteries. You may ask why EV batteries are such a big deal. This is because the battery used in EVs alone makes up around 35 to 50% of the cost of the vehicle. Further, if we open up the battery and have a look at the most important components, we have the anode, the cathode, and the electrolyte that separates the anode and the cathode. In this, the cathode alone makes up around 51% of the cost of the battery. The cathode contains metals like lithium, nickel, cobalt, and manganese. The anode on the other side makes up 12% of the cost of the battery and contains graphite. Electric cars use about 6 times more rare minerals than conventional cars because of the battery in them. And China gets to decide who gets the minerals first and at what price. Now, why am I saying this? Well, you'll understand in just a few minutes. Because this is a story of absolute control, a story of global dominance. This is the arena of geopolitics. Out of the metals required to make the battery, lithium and cobalt are the most important of all. Out of the 118 elements in the periodic table, Lithium and cobalt are crucial for EV batteries because they are perfectly compatible for ensuring the efficiency of the batteries. This is for three major reasons. Number one, if we look at the periodic table, lithium is the lightest metal of all, placed just below hydrogen and helium. Number two, lithium-ion batteries are 95% efficient, as compared to the 80 to 85% in the case of lead-acid batteries. This allows the battery to charge faster and have a more effective battery capacity. Number three, a lithium-ion battery can hold 3 to 8 times more energy as compared to a lead-acid battery. A lead-acid battery can generally hold 30 to 50 watt-hours per kilogram, whereas lithium-ion battery stores 150 to 250 watt-hours per kilogram. In the case of cobalt, it is a complementary material to lithium because cobalt enhances the energy density of lithium-ion batteries, which translates to longer driving ranges and improved performance for electric vehicles. Secondly, cobalt provides a high thermal stability since it has a high melting point of 1,493 degrees Celsius. So cobalt, offering high heat capacity, contributes to battery safety. Overall, lithium-ion batteries are the most efficient as compared to other battery types, and so are the most preferred option over other batteries when it comes to EVs. This means that the countries with these natural resources are playing a critical role by supplying these metals. In the case of lithium, Australia, Chile, China, and Argentina are the top producers of lithium. These four countries alone are responsible for more than 90% of the lithium supply in the world, with Australia being the world leader, with a production total of a whopping 86,000 metric tons as of 2023. This is so huge that the production of the next three largest producers, Chile, Argentina, and China, combined only match Australia's production numbers. In the case of cobalt, an African country called the Democratic Republic of Congo, or the DRC, alone accounted for 73% of global cobalt production as of 2022. And this quantity was around 145,000 tons. Cobalt production from every other country combined just makes up around 52,855 tons, which is not even half of the DRC's production. So the DRC has played and will play a critical role in the future as well, because the EV revolution is going to further drive the demand for cobalt, which is forecasted to more than double to 3,888,000 tons by 2030. So, since Australia and the DRC are the top producers of these metals, they must have made a lot of money selling batteries to EV companies, and they must be leaders in battery manufacturing, right? Well, there's a twist. Have a look at this chart. As of 2022, China controls about 77% of the global lithium-ion battery production capacity. Poland and the US have 6% each, and the remaining 11% go to other countries. A Chinese company named Contemporary Amperex Technology Limited, or CATL, alone controls around 34% market share as of 2022. They provide lithium-ion batteries to almost all the big players like Tesla, Puget, Hyundai, Honda, BMW, Toyota, Volkswagen, and Volvo. CATL isn't the only one. 6 out of the 10 largest EV battery producing companies are Chinese. Now you may ask, where is Australia on this list? It's the highest lithium producer. If not first and second, it must be at least in the top 5. Well, surprisingly, Australia is in the 10th spot, with a share of just 0.1% as of 2021. So why is the top lithium producer not the top battery producer? Most importantly, how did China become the top producer? This is where China played its genius move and ensured that it controlled the mines of these metals, even if they're not present in China.
If the Congo is the dark heart of Africa, then this must surely be its deepest pit. In the bowels of the earth, men dig through the mud for gold. This country is endowed in minerals, copper, uranium, diamonds, and cobalt, and China is after it.
On the 17th of September 2007, China signed a Memorandum of Understanding, or MOU, with the DRC, which at the time was labeled as the deal of the century. This was a $9 billion deal, under which Chinese companies received access to cobalt and copper mining rights in the DRC for 25 years.
In return, China agreed to finance multiple transportation and social infrastructure projects like railways, hospitals, and universities, which were to be funded by China's Exim Bank. So basically, China said, hey, give us the rights to mine copper and cobalt in your country, and we'll provide you with a loan of $9 billion, but not in cash. Our companies will build infrastructure projects worth $9 billion in your country, and then you reimburse the loan amount from the profits from the mining operations. Under the agreement, China was to receive about 10 million tons of copper and about 600,000 metric tons of cobalt, both of these having an estimated value of $50 billion. For the mining operations, a joint venture was formed between the Congolese state mining company Geka Mines and a group of Chinese state-owned enterprises. This joint venture is collectively known as the Sino-Congolese de Mines, or what the world popularly knows it as the Sino Mines Agreement. In this, the DRC Geka Mines retained a 32% stake, and the group of Chinese companies had the majority with a 68% stake. There is a lot of debate on whether this agreement was fair for the already debt-laden Congo. There were a lot of bribery allegations on Congo's top leadership. But either way, China got access to one of the most important materials, cobalt. Later, China aggressively went on to either acquire more mines or increase its stakes in the mines in the DRC. For example, Tenke Fungurum, one of the largest copper-cobalt mines in the DRC, was once owned and operated by U.S. mining company Freeport-McMoRan Incorporated. But in 2016, a Chinese mining firm, China Molybdenum Company, or China Moly, acquired a 56% stake from Freeport and later increased it to 80% in 2019. But considering the rising demand, China Moly announced an investment of $2.5 billion in August of 2021 to almost double the copper and cobalt production from the same mine. This move was expected to increase the average annual copper output by 200,000 tons and cobalt output by 17,000 tons. China Moly acquired a 95% stake for $550 million in 2020 in another copper-cobalt mine in the Congo, just 20 miles away from the Tenke Fungurum mine. In this case, it didn't acquire this stake from the Congolese government, but rather from the same U.S. company, Freeport-McMoRan Incorporated. So, as of 2024, 95% stake in this new mine is owned by China Moly, and the DRC government holds the remaining 5%. According to reports, this mine holds around 3.1 million tons of cobalt and 6.28 million tons of copper. Similarly, another Chinese corporation, Huayou Cobalt, owns or has a stake in at least 3 copper-cobalt mines in the DRC. So, fast forward to 2022. Out of the 19 cobalt operations in the DRC, 15 are now either owned or co-owned by Chinese entities. These Chinese companies also have the backing of Chinese state-owned banks to support them financially. In fact, the 5 largest Chinese mining corporations mining cobalt and copper in the Congo have access to credit lines from Chinese state banks totaling an astounding $124 billion. This basically means that these mining corporations can borrow money from these banks up to the specified credit limit. So, because of nature's gift to the DRC, 70% of the world's cobalt is mined in the DRC, and 80% of that is then headed to China for processing. But cobalt has a problem. Although the Congo has been blessed with natural resources, this same blessing has turned into a curse for many Congolese citizens.
Some 200,000 miners work in these mines. At least 40,000 of them are children, some as young as 6. These children flirt with death daily. They enter vertical tunnels. Most of them are too narrow for adults to enter. Inside, it's like a furnace. The children dig for cobalt under inhuman conditions.
The DRC has some of the weakest labor laws in the world. As a result, they have a terrible record on working conditions and child labor. Human rights abuses and child labor are major issues in the Congo's mining sector. These concerns regarding human rights abuses and child labor became the most important reason for companies all over the world to reduce the cobalt content in batteries, and also partly as a way to avoid the legal and reputational risks. So one of of the best replacements for cobalt was nickel. Now, although completely eliminating cobalt isn't an option, many battery manufacturers across the world have decreased cobalt content significantly. A few of the battery manufacturers even managed to produce cathodes for batteries with 80% nickel and only 10% cobalt. So any country with nickel has hit a gold mine. If we see where the majority of nickel is found, it's Indonesia, with 55 million metric tons of nickel as of 2023. This means the world has finally found a spot in the battery manufacturing supply chain where they
Don't have enough
to rely on
enchantment.
China.
Sagittarius and
Right.
Zachary Brew.
Actually, the reality is far
Sorry, I
different.
didn't see your.
Because Chinese companies control a huge chunk of the
Mouse.
nickel in Indonesia. The same Chinese companies that dominate cobalt mining in the DRC, which are Huayu Cobalt and China Moly,
All right, now where do I go? I'm trying to get back to my place. I don't know where it is.
Interestingly, the world's largest nickel producer is China's Tsingshan Holding Group, which has a significant portion of its operations based in Indonesia. This has made China the largest global market producer of nickel, beating competition from Europe and the USA. Now, in the case of lithium, the most important element in an EV battery, China produces a significant amount of lithium because they have a significant amount of lithium present in China itself. In 2023, China produced 33,000 metric tons of lithium, ranking third among the top lithium producers globally. However, this amount is insufficient for China to maintain its position as the world's leading battery manufacturer. So, just like other materials, Chinese companies even control some of the biggest lithium mines present outside of China. For example, Chinese mining company Tianqi Lithium acquired a 51% stake in Greenbushes mine, the world's biggest hard rock lithium mine present in Australia. This same company is also the second largest shareholder in a Chilean mining company called SQM. China's Ganfeng Lithium holds a 51% stake in Argentina's lithium project, and Chinese companies are also spending $1.4 billion to build lithium extraction plants in Bolivia and several other lithium projects in the lithium-rich nation. This is how China controls the mines, even though they are not present in China. This doesn't mean Western countries don't own mines abroad, it's just that they are more reluctant to put money into countries with unstable governments or poor labor practices. Basically what we saw in the case of the Congo. Even now, in the case of the anode of the battery, China has the upper hand, because the majority of the anode is made up of graphite. Graphite is mostly mined in China. On the other hand, U.S. producers synthesize graphite at a much greater cost. This is how China controls most of the supply of metals required for making batteries. But the story doesn't end here. When I dug deeper to study battery manufacturing more precisely, I found something absolutely astounding. You see, although China controls some critical mines in Australia, Australia still has control over most of its mines, and it could sell this lithium to the world. But surprisingly, Australia first sells its lithium to China, and then China sells lithium to the world. And as of 2023, Australia shipped around 98% of its lithium to China. But isn't this stupid? Why is Australia selling it to China instead of selling it directly to the world or making EV batteries internally? I found the answer to this question in what Elon Musk said in 2022. Elon Musk once said, getting into the lithium refining business is like a license to print money. He also mentioned that mining is relatively easy, the refining is much harder. Now, to understand why he said that, we need to understand the supply chain of an EV battery. The lithium we mine cannot be used directly for making EV batteries. It must be refined into battery-grade materials before it's ready to use in batteries. If we see the supply chain, it consists of 4 major parts: mining, refining, making cell components and battery cells, and assembly. Mining is already dominated by China, but the surprise is yet to come. When it comes to refining capabilities, China refines 60% of the world's lithium and 80% of the world's lithium hydroxide. Other countries are lagging behind China due to various reasons that include the tech, investments needed to refine lithium, and a huge amount of energy. In fact, the metals used in batteries require 3 to 4 times as much energy to refine as steel or copper. But Chinese refining companies are supported by the government with cheap land and energy. so they're able to refine minerals at larger volumes and lower costs than everyone else. Refining also causes a lot of pollution. But again, China has less stringent environmental regulations. In fact, the environment is such a critical factor that it has even resulted in protests and backlash against refining companies in many countries, including Australia. But in China, you can't protest. So now you know why Australia sells almost all of its lithium to China and not directly to the world. This isn't just for lithium, though. Most of the raw materials are shipped to China to be refined, and it has equally destructive effects on the environment. For example, for every pound of refined cobalt powder produced, around 860 pounds of rock waste is produced. Similarly, processing nickel also generates a lot of toxic waste. When it comes to manufacturing lithium-ion batteries, China has mega factories that manufacture these lithium batteries at scale. And out of the world's 200 lithium-ion battery megafactories in the pipeline, 148 of them are located in China, whereas Europe and North America only have 21 and 11 megafactories in the pipeline, respectively. This is how China alone produces 75% of all lithium-ion batteries used worldwide. But isn't this kind of dumb on China's part? I mean, it's foolish to take on all the burden to make batteries. After all, we can just focus on recycling. I bet most of you have heard of battery recycling. This is revolutionary because it is not like oil where the product will get completely extinguished. I mean, this sounds brilliant, right? But there's a problem. It's the technology and infrastructure required for it. As of December of 2023, China led the world in battery recycling capacity, with a capacity of more than 500,000 metric tons, as compared to the US and Europe with around 200,000 metric tons of capacity each. On top of that, according to a report, by 2030, more than 66% of wasted electric vehicle batteries are expected to be recycled in China. In fact, Chinese EV manufacturer BYD has also developed a recycling process that can recover up to 90% of the materials used in the battery. So even the recycling is dominated by China. So, long story short, China clearly dominates the EV battery value chain from top to bottom. So, now that China has mastered and dominated battery technology, it has become easier for Chinese EV makers to build EVs at much lower costs. Most of the Chinese EV giants like BYD make EV batteries in-house. And unlike other car makers who expanded to build electric models, BYD was initially a battery company that later started making cars. And because the batteries are the most expensive part of an EV, making them in-house saves BYD a ton of money, and they can sell EVs at a much lower cost. Global competitors, on the other hand, including Tesla, rely on third-party manufacturers for batteries, which increases the cost of their products. For example, BYD's entry-level EV, the Seagull, is priced at around $11,000. Tesla, on the other hand, introduced a Model 3 sedan in China with a starting price of nearly $36,000. Maybe this is why Mr. Buffett has invested more than $230 million in BYD. Similarly, the average price of an electric vehicle in China as of 2022 was $27,000, whereas in Europe it was over $40,500, and in the US it is over $54,000. The same is the case with the cars the Chinese sell in Europe. Its average prices are 25% lower as compared to its European rivals. The result? 1 in every 5 EVs sold in Europe is a Chinese import. And this even includes cars of non-Chinese brands like BMW and Tesla, which have manufacturing facilities in China. So, China mastered EV batteries and EV cars by giving incentives and support to both the Chinese people and the EV manufacturers. According to the Center for Strategic and International Studies, China spent more than $130 billion on research incentives, government contracts, and other consumer subsidies. On top of that, electric car buyers in China get tax rebates, cheaper vehicle registration, preferential parking, and access to an extensive charging network. As of 2022, China had nearly 1.8 million publicly accessible electric vehicle chargers, making it
home to the largest public charging infrastructure globally. As we know, China exports a lot of these cars, and tariffs play an important role in deciding the price of a car. In the case of Europe, they have a standard 10% tariff on almost every imported car. But despite these tariffs, the Chinese still have their 25 to 30% cost advantage. And so Europeans still found it cheaper to buy Chinese cars instead of European cars. But this might change soon, and Chinese car makers could lose a chunk of the European market. This is because, according to EU officials, Chinese companies were receiving unfair subsidies from the Chinese government, which made it difficult for European car makers to compete with their Chinese counterparts. If China is found guilty, the EU could impose tariffs on Chinese cars above the standard 10% EU rate. But where's the US in this game? Because I haven't even mentioned the US anywhere, and there's a good reason for that. In 2018, the Trump administration imposed a 25 plus 2.5% tariff on Chinese-made cars. So basically, a 2.5% tariff is generally applied to every imported car. But an additional 25% has been imposed on Chinese cars, making it a total tariff of 27.5%. This was done to protect U.S. manufacturers from cheap Chinese cars that were flooding into the U.S. This tariff has killed the 25 to 30% cost advantage that Chinese car makers had. And as a result, China completely lost its competitiveness in the American market. And Chinese auto companies currently have a very limited presence in the U.S. as of now. So does this mean that China has given up on the huge market of the U.S.? Of course not. China, very cunningly, has set up manufacturing bases outside of China to evade tariffs. Because then, these vehicles technically won't have the Made in China tag. So cars made at the Chinese-owned factory in Mexico would only face the 2.5% standard tariff. But even this move is closely monitored by the USA. Similar to EVs is the case of Chinese-made solar panels. The US has imposed tariffs on them. The US did this because of the surge of cheap solar panels from China destroying US manufacturers. After all, cheap Chinese imports forced 4 US solar manufacturers to seek bankruptcy protection. So, 2012, Obama imposed duties as high as 249% on Chinese imports. But even in this case, China found a way to evade the more than a decade-old tariff on imports. According to the U.S. Commerce Department, China directed its supply chains through factories in Cambodia, Malaysia, Thailand, and Vietnam. The U.S. already probed this case and could take necessary action later. Even in the case of India, Chinese investments worth billions were blocked by India several times. India did this to protect domestic manufacturing and, well, because of geopolitical reasons. So, it's great. Everyone is containing China, right? Whether it's the US, Europe, or India, or any other major economy, they are pushing back against China. Well, no, actually. Let's just accept the bitter truth. Although countries are trying to break China's dominance, the supply chains of EVs and solar cells are completely dominated by China. So at this point, the world needs China. Sadly, that's the truth. But now, does this mean that the world is just letting go of the future of solar and EV production to China completely? Well, the answer is also no. The world has taken some crucial measures to reduce the dependency on China in the solar and EV supply chain. In February of 2023, India struck gold. India found 5.9 million tons of lithium in its Jammu and Kashmir state. This was significant because this discovery made India the 7th largest source of lithium globally. Potential reserves could also be present in other Indian states. And India is likely to start working on lithium exploration soon. Although these things are at very nascent stages, the world has another huge proven source of lithium without Chinese control. When it comes to producing lithium-ion cells, which is an important part of the supply chain, European companies are also beginning to gain on China's lead. According to a report, by 2030, Europe is expected to have 28 factories producing lithium-ion cells, with an increased production capacity by 1,440% from 2020 levels. Australia, an important player in the supply chain,
has blocked the acquisition of Alita Resources, Australia's local lithium producer, by a Chinese company. Similarly, Australia blocked the Chinese acquisition of another company called Northern Minerals, and it had several such earlier cases too. On top of that, the Australian government has already put hundreds of millions of dollars towards supporting the lithium refining industry. A report in 2022 forecasted that 20% of global lithium refining could take place in Australia by 2027, which is currently less than 1% as of 2023. As we know, refining is an extremely critical part of the EV supply chain. The US, on the other hand, came up with something called the Inflation Reduction Act in 2022. One of the key goals of the act is to reduce carbon emissions by around 40% by 2030. This might sound like a Greta Thunberg speech, but it has some very important provisions to tackle China. The IRA provides tax incentives, estimated to add up to $30 billion over the next decade, to encourage the manufacturing of solar modules, wind turbines, inverters, and batteries for electric vehicles, and the refining of critical minerals in the US. Another $20 billion will finance loans that will be issued by the Department of Energy to support domestic EV manufacturing. Finally, the investment tax credit, another $10 billion, will incentivize the building of EV, wind turbine, and solar panel factories. On top of that, it offers loans or subsidies to companies in countries like Australia that have a free trade agreement with the United States. So, refining lithium would also allow Australia to tap into the Inflation Reduction Act. This act taps into de-risking both the solar as well as the EV. More good news is that solar and EV tech are new technologies and are evolving fast. We will see rapid innovation in them. The reason I'm saying this is because a US company, First Solar, produced the cadmium telluride panels. And the best part about this innovation is that they do not require polysilicon and have a lower environmental impact. Now, only time will tell whether the world will be able to tackle China or not. The chances of another pandemic coming are low, but that doesn't mean that YouTube is not growing. In fact, YouTube just overtook Netflix in terms of how much time people spent on their TVs. And that's just television. Imagine how much time people are watching YouTube if you combine TV, phones, and computers.
Is that the same one? Business Basics?
It's not the same one.
What country is that?
Which picture?
Strong earthquake and aftershocks.
Well,
Is that Alaska? It looks like the Aleutian Islands. Looks like we're looking
This is
toward Hawaii from Alaska.
What is this?
That looks like the part that goes down to Juneau. Let's see.
Thank you very much for joining me. I'm meteorologist Brian Shields. I'm going to get right to this. This an earthquake that hit really in the middle of the night last night in northern Venezuela, but it was felt in so many spots. It may have woken you up back toward Trinidad and Tobago, Grenada, St. Vincent and the Grenadines, Guyana, Suriname. Some reports of feeling this. Let me know if you felt it too.
Oh, it's Venezuela.
Barbados, but this earthquake was a strong one, 6.0 in magnitude. The depth is 80 kilometers or 50 miles below. Well, what does that mean? What does it mean for damage, the potential for some aftershocks? I want to get into that. Now, looking at the depth was kind of the saving grace in this. I mentioned that depth 80 to 90 kilometers down, so that's intermediate depth. And that helped prevent a lot of damage. There's some minor damage in Venezuela. Been seeing some of that, still getting some of the reports out, but more of a shallow earthquake closer to the surface. If we had a closer to the surface earthquake with a magnitude of 6.0, there would have been more damage. Fortunately, it was just into the intermediate level. The deeper, the better as far as that is concerned. So that is one of the saving graces with that. Now, there still could be some after.
But you want a different one?
You want to say something about food?
Ah, yes, food.
Food fade. Oh, that was pretty good this year. Okay.
Would you like some food?
Yes, I would love some. Would you like to get it for me?
So here's some vegetables. I don't see any meat here, but there's certainly also veggies.
There's
some
no.
meat mixed in with the veggies. Okay.
Thank you, Willem. Oh, yummy. Oh, my.
I'm gonna go wash over and be right back and I'll get some food with you.
Mmm. Thanks, Willem.
Welcome to Divine Justice. The Western Pacific, a crucial area for strategic military maneuvers, is witnessing unprecedented interactions between Japan's naval and air forces and those of its powerful neighbors, China and Russia. Japan, a longtime treaty ally of the United States, said it sent Navy ships to the North and Southwestern seas this week to monitor Chinese and Russian military vessels on maneuvers in the Western Pacific Ocean. A report released by the Japanese Defense Ministry's Joint Staff Office on June 14th and on Monday identified the location of waterways used by foreign Navy warships the previous day. The images included in the now routine disclosures showed the silhouettes and hull numbers of the Pribaltica, the only Balzan-class intelligence ship still in service with the Russian Navy, as well as the Chinese Navy's Luoyang III-class destroyer Zibo and the Fuji-class fleet. The move was part of Tokyo's long-standing practice of announcing that it has detected foreign and especially enemy warplanes and ships near the vast archipelago region that shares long maritime borders with Russia, North Korea, and China. The Japanese government's map, built on geographic data, shows the Pribaltica sailing into the Sea of Okhotsk on June 13th through La Perouse Strait north of Japan's main island of Hokkaido. Japan calls it the Soya Strait. The 4,900-ton Soviet-era spy ship is assigned to Russia's Pacific Fleet, headquartered in the closed town of Fokino, in Peter the Great Bay, in the Sea of Japan. Meanwhile, the Sea of Okhotsk is separated from the North Pacific Ocean by the Moscow-held Kuril Islands, whose ownership is disputed by Tokyo. Japan's Joint Chiefs of Staff said the 200-ton Hayabusa-class patrol boat JS Wakataka and a P-3C Orion maritime patrol aircraft were sent to shadow the Russian Signals Intelligence Collection vessel, which Russia classifies as a Project 1826 vessel. On Sunday, Japan's Maritime Self-Defense sent another P-3C anti-submarine aircraft and the 570-ton Sugashima-class minesweeper JS Shishijima, the 7,500-ton guided missile destroyer Zibo, and the 23,000-ton supply ship Gaoyuhu on watch. Some of them are serving in the Chinese military's Eastern Fleet, based in the port city of Ningbo. The ships, classified by China as Type 052D and Type 903A respectively, sailed from the East China Sea to the Western Pacific through the strategic Miyako Strait between the Japanese islands of Miyako and Okinawa, home to two-thirds of the 54,000 ships, U.S. military personnel stationed in Japan, China's defense ministry did not immediately respond to a request for comment on the maneuvers. Later on Monday, the ministry announced that the Zibo and Gao Yuhu had left eastern China and were on their way to the Pacific island nation of Tonga to celebrate the 50th anniversary of the Tongan Navy. On behalf of the Chinese People's Liberation Army Navy, he will be present at the Naval Fleet Inspection, Land Parade, Welcome Reception, military music performance, and other activities organized by Tonga, together with some Asian, European, and European navies. Oceania countries, the ministry said of Zibo's trip. Meanwhile, 3 Russian Navy ships passed through the Tsugaru Strait on Tuesday and set sail for the Pacific Ocean, Japan's defense ministry said. The Japan Self-Defense Forces have been closely monitoring the region since Russia announced it would hold military exercises near Japan. The Maritime Self-Defense Forces detected a Russian Navy destroyer and 2 tank landing ships on Tuesday off the northernmost prefecture of Hokkaido, about 50 kilometers southwest of Oshima Island, the ministry said Wednesday. They were traveling eastward in the Sea of Japan. The ministry said the MSDF confirmed that the 3 ships then passed through the Tsugaru Strait between Japan's main island of Honshu and Hokkaido, heading towards the Pacific. Russia's defense ministry announced on Tuesday that the Pacific Fleet will hold exercises in the Pacific Ocean, the Sea of Japan, and the Sea of Okhotsk from June 18, 28. About 40 ships will participate in the exercise, the ministry said. Navigation warnings were issued in some waters for possible missile drills. Japan's defense ministry sources say that 3 ships passing through the strait will also participate in the exercise. On the other hand, a video circulating on social media shows the Chinese Navy torpedoing a decommissioned ship. China has released a video showing a decommissioned Navy ship being sunk by a submarine-launched torpedo. At present, our torpedo attack and missile attack have achieved historic breakthroughs in sea verification, China's state news agency Xinhua said on Monday. This means our combat capability is stronger, the battlefield is wider, and we are more confident when used. The footage, first posted on China's social media platform Weibo by state-owned China Central Television on June 16, includes scenes from a sinking drill or similar test, in which the Type 074 Yuhai-class amphibious landing. The ship was attacked. The video appears to have been filmed on the 70th anniversary of the founding of the Chinese Navy on April 23rd. It offers a rare glimpse of submarine weapon capabilities. One expert said the ship shown in the video was a decommissioned Type 074 landing craft that was attacked with a torpedo. A Type 074 LST was used in a Sync-X and torpedoed by a planned submarine.
Are you following this?
I'm moving forward a little bit, but
What is it saying?
The video shows the explosion of the torpedo and the subsequent lifting of the ship. This is usually a catastrophic event that can break the keel of the ship. This demonstration offers a rare glimpse of the power and precision of China's submarine weapons. Chinese leader Xi Jinping has outlined a vision to transform the People's Liberation Army into an offshore navy, which includes the development of a formidable submarine fleet for underwater warfare. Beijing now boasts of having the world's largest navy in terms of hull numbers, and China continues to launch more navy and merchant ships than any other country. This expanding surface and submarine fleet is in line with Xi's goal of creating a modern fighting force capable of dominating the region by the end of the decade. Warzone, a defense-oriented publication, suggested that a wake torpedo was used to target the decommissioned vessel. Indicators include the point of impact and the fact that the ship was moving under its own power or in tow when it was hit. Wake-guided torpedoes are a major threat to any naval force, the news source recently reported. They are guided by supporting the ship's wake and literally floating and exploding all the way to the stern of the ship, where critical components are usually centralized. As a target, Type 074 is an interesting choice given its size and mission set. But hunting and killing landing craft similar to it certainly falls within the scope of the Plan Attack submarine's mission.
no, I don't care about it
The
anymore.
Navy has 17 Yuan-class submarines in active service in various fleets. These diesel-electric boats are considered among the quietest classes of submarines. China recently launched an advanced submarine that can avoid detection. The Type 039C, an upgraded variant with stealth sails to reduce detectability, was first identified by satellite image
Russian President Vladimir Putin recently visited North Korea. Well, what's the big deal? Presidents visit other countries all the time. Whoever thinks Putin's visit was ordinary is wrong. This visit was very significant, and it was huge. The meanings, the signs, the messages, and the outcome of this visit in today's live stream. Howdy, howdy everyone, my name is Konstantin. Welcome to Inside Russia, where usual Russia is explained by the unusual Russian. No propaganda, BS or lies here. As usual, only truth, common sense, and logic. And some emotions, because I am a human being after all. Before I start, please be informed that this live stream will consist of two parts. This message of Putin's visit to North Korea and the outcomes, and a prayer at the end, a short prayer at the end. Before I start, well, I'd like all of us, you and me, to look at the big picture. To us Russians, North Korea was always an example of a failed state. Yes, failed state. It was the standard of the worst that can happen to a society. That's basically a disaster that can happen to good people. Well, North Korea and Cuba, actually. I remember I went to Cuba and I was looking around and I was thinking, and there are only two countries left at the time like that, Cuba and North Korea. When we discussed North Korea, we always remembered the USSR saying, look, that could be us now. Well, I think it wasn't just for us. North Korea failed state wasn't just for us, but for the entire world. For you too. But I want to emphasize, North Korea was the example of the worst terrible that could happen to us. Heck, could happen to anybody. We never took North Korea seriously. Never. It was like an evil clown. Heck, even in the USSR, people laughed at North Koreans and North Korea. We had this magazine called Korea, and it basically was a propaganda pictures showing us how wonderful Koreans were living at the time, and we knew, even at the USSR, people looked at that magazine, looked at those pictures, and laughed. Well, things are a little different now. Well, a lot different. I dare to say more. Things are actually quite unbelievable. It's unbelievable how different things are. I'm sorry. I'm trying to stress this thing. Okay, now it's completely different. And it's different not with North Korea. North Korea hasn't changed a bit. It's the same. The change happened to Russia. In 2024, Russia became North Korea's closest ally. It's true, Russia doesn't have an ally closer than North Korea now. As two countries signed a comprehensive strategic partnership treaty that includes both countries pledging to assist each other if attacked, militarily. North Korea was one evil clown in the world, but now there are two. And that's my country too, Russia, that joined the company, and that company is not vulnerable. Okay, now let's find out what happened. And then we'll talk about the goal of the visit and the outcomes. Russian President Vladimir Putin visited North Korea. It was his second visit. The first happened in 2000, when Putin just became the president of Russia. And visiting North Korea then was a very brave and actually a smart move on Putin's side. Putin was trying to establish himself as a real president of Russia, so the entire world would recognize him as a powerful leader. Then 24 years passed, and many things happened. I comparison of Vladimir Putin's visit to Pyongyang makes it clearly see the direction of both Russia and North Korea heading to in the new century. In the year 2000, Russian president visited North Korea as a representative of the global world. The world that overcame totalitarianism. The world that was moving into the bright future. And Putin dreamt of becoming an intermediary between the rogue state of North Korea and the international community. He wanted to fix things between North Korea and the rest of the world. North Korea and Cuba were actually all that was left from the Cold War, the remnant of the past. A mistake that soon would be fixed. All of us were sure of that. 24 years later, Putin approached the current visit in the status of outcast of an even bigger caliber than Kim Jong-un. Putin failed to bring North Korea into the world community, but he brilliantly managed to bring Russia into North Korea. You know, Soviet leaders disliked, even despised the Kims, the ruling dynasty of North Korea. The Soviet leaders knew the value of their own henchmen and their true origin. They knew that the Kims were only the barbarians and arrogance of mediocre people in power. The Kims were tolerated only for the geopolitical reasons. After all, it was the USSR who created North Korea. And the first Kim was a Soviet citizen. He had lived in the USSR before he was an officer of the Red Army. So, all Soviet leaders despised Kims. Not a single Soviet leader in all the existence of the USSR, in all Soviet decades of so-called friendship and cooperation, ever came to visit North Korea. And Putin visited twice. And not just visited, it was sort of a celebration. It actually reminded me staged visits and fake celebrations that we had in the USSR. And I want to show you so you can see for yourself. Check it out. This is Putin coming to North Korea. Please note that Putin is in good health, or he appears to be energetic, feeling well, looking fairly good. That's to those critics who say that he's not in good health. Unfortunately. And lovely friend is meeting, hugging, and it's too bad they weren't kissing. And this is a little different angle. One of the top Russian propaganda person, his last name was Zarubin, as you can clearly see on the screen. This guy reminds me of a Soviet reporters, but he's more lively, he's more modern, so to speak. And this one I absolutely love. Folks, check this out. This is good stuff. See how many people around, standing in the background? How many hot air balloons? Is it balloons? Yeah, helium balloons or whatever. Everyone is so organized. And was anthems. And the Russian delegation right there behind Putin. I think that you can see Lavrov behind him. This is Lavrov. Folks, I want you to see something. I want you to see the kids out back, happy and cheering and waving their flags. And I want you to see the people in the background over there also cheering and standing by the way.
Zarubin reporter.
Remember see they're screaming. Folks, I wanna tell you one thing. This is very personal to me because that is my childhood. That reminds me of the country where I grew up in, the USSR, so bad. It's actually unbelievable. This is the smell, the taste, the color of the USSR. We as kids were forced out of school to meet, to stand on the street to meet some important guy. That didn't happen too often in Rostov. Okay, once in a while. But every time we were forced out of school, we were given days off. People were forced, workers were forced out of factories. Brings memories. Not good ones. And this is exactly what I'm talking about. Look, these people are dancing out there, and it's not like they're doing it for themselves. And the dancing, there's a Russian song, old Soviet song, basically there's a song. The meaning of the song is, the words are, the USSR is the greatest country in the world, and I don't know any other country there where people breathe so freely. Okay? And this is what they were singing in North Korea. Well, they were playing that song, old Soviet song. Stalin loved that song that was written back in the 30s. And this guy is seriously, he's enjoying that. To us, when I was growing up, it was shame. And to him, he's praising it. He's happy about that. He's joyous. Look at this kids. That's me. That's us. 40 years ago. That's us 40 years ago, folks. Look at them. You see, those people are standing, and they're forced to stand there all day, and they cannot leave, and there's no option not to go, because they're going to be punished. That's what the USSR looked like. And this fella in the car is so happy to say, look, we're going to be driving for 30 kilometers, 20 miles, and these people are standing greeting us for 20 miles. Look how wonderful that is. This is insanity. I don't know what to tell you. I despised that. That was the worst the USSR could offer, had that. And he loves it. He goes, well, perhaps all Finyan capital's inhabitants are here. Well, I bet, and they have no choice. Poor people, right there. And they're forced to wave and smile and sing and scream, oh, hey,
But they seem to be happy. Maybe they think that their lives are going to get better now that Putin is considering North Korea.
This car is Aros. It's called Aros in Russian, and it That's official Putin's car. Well, the thing is, it's assembled in Russia, but it's used Porsche, German car manufacturer, Porsche's not spare parts, but details. It's built on Porsche platform. And they're so happy that it's Russian. Well, why don't you call it like ours Porsche or something like that? This looks so familiar, you know. It's actually unbelievable. It's might as well be the USSR. The picture is absolutely the same. I mean, obviously our TV sets were much lower quality, and the picture itself was lower quality. But this is the whole thing. The North Korean army even looks like the Red Army of the USSR.
I guess we don't often get to see footage of North Korea, do we?
I'm going crazy. I feel like I'm
But
back
apparently
to my childhood.
they're very
They want to
they're
promote
brutal,
this.
They're brutal. Everybody has to obey, and the least frivolous thing you can get killed or sent to mines and hard labor for many years just for doing saying something that is not nice or not well received by the power, by the elite, by the power.
Brought him presents, and he also brought him a present. He gave him one of his cars, ours.
A coffin?
More presents, but this time to Putin.
Yeah, his coffin. Here's your coffin, brother.
Dogs? He seems very pleased. A horse, 2 dogs, car.
This fella, I don't know who he is, but is asking, we already gave a gift of ours some time ago. He says, well, this is the second one. That ours was different. That was a long version, and this one is short. Why don't you just give some spare parts, Porsche spare parts for this ours? And now finally the Tsar is leaving. Oh, what a wonderful time in North Korea.
So North Korea has become like the USSR.
Mm-hmm. Burst probably.
You know, folks, I took the official videos of the visit, how Russian official propaganda, because Ruben Reporter is one of the top propaganda people. His official press was approved by Kremlin's press service. And then he has a Telegram channel, he films a lot, and that's all the information comes from him as official. And I just showed you official info. Reminded me of my childhood again. People wanted to go back into the USSR so bad. Well, there you have it. You are back there. Your leader acts as if he was a Soviet Bonza leader, you know. Insane. But anyway, enough of emotions. So what was the goal, a real goal of the visit of Vladimir Putin to North Korea? Now let's talk about what do Russians need from North Korea, really? missile technologies and avoiding sanctions. That's only what lies on the surface. I don't think that's why Vladimir Putin came there, because about 6 months ago, Kim Jong-un visited Putin in Russia, and then they strike some deals. And so Putin didn't just come for weapons and people. There were reasons that lay underneath the surface, and let's try to talk about them. Both Kim and Putin are desperately looking for getting accepted. Putin wants the entire world to see that he still is the leader of the world's caliber, that he can travel outside Russia and not get arrested on the warrant of the International Criminal Court in Hague. And if the developed countries understand that the value of this visit is very low, at North Korea, what's the big deal? Many people in Africa and Asia and perhaps Latin America, they see it otherwise. They do see Putin traveling to outside Russia and not getting arrested, and that brings his image up in their eyes. Kim wants to be involved, and in the first time in his reign, he is involved, making important alliances, showing the world that he is back, that he is important, he is needed, and he is the player. He's not just the leader of a mistake country that soon would have to be fixed. No, he is the leader. He is to be taken seriously. Both Kim and Putin desperately need allies. Both now hardly have any. Kim desperately needs some leverage on his master, China. He needs some space to maneuver. Putin desperately needs to show the world that he's still the global trendsetter. That all could be predicted, It's just doesn't take a rocket scientist to understand that.
Oh, it's 9:30.
The biggest surprise of this visit was the strategic partnership agreement. The surprise not just to me, but to all the experts. None of us expected that. Everything else could be considered as blah, 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 and just another visit of Putin to kind of like, get him more respect a little bit. So everything else was blah, 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 but not that, not the agreement. Putin called the agreement a fundamental document that will form the basis of relations between the two countries for many years to come. At the press conference after the signing of the agreement, Russian president said that it provides for mutual assistance in case of aggression against one of the parties. And that is huge. He also noted that Russia does not write out military.
Also, North Korea now gets to have a war.
In accordance with the signed document. Kim Jong-un said in turn that the treaty is exclusively peaceful and defensive in nature. Yes, we've seen that and done that, and Russia is also defending itself from Ukrainian aggression and from NATO countries. Of course, under Ukrainian territory. Russia doesn't have such an agreement with anybody else. It's basically Article 5 of NATO. And that is a big deal for the country. It's a huge deal. This is a commitment of a cosmic scale. This shouldn't be a decision made by one man. This, people need to get involved. Yet, Putin made that decision alone. Does Russia need that? Well, before answering that, I'd like to thank you, those of you who bought me coffees at buymeacoffee.com. Thank you so very much. Your support shows that you value what I do, and it gives me incredible feedback. It just inspires me, gives me energy to keep on going, and it's great. Thank you so very much. inside it? Well, Putin needs it. Why? For the same reason he needs Pussy forces to attack international ships in the Red Sea. For the same reason he needs Hamas to attack Israel. For the same reason he needs China to attack Taiwan. For the same reason he needs North Korea to attack South Korea. Putin needs chaos. As much chaos as possible. That will take the eyes of the world's community from Ukraine to somewhere else. Just as it happened on October 7th. You all remember that, don't you? That will thin out the support of the world community away from Ukraine. Less attention, less money, less weapons, less everything. And it is the real reason Vladimir Putin visited North Korea. To plant more seeds of chaos. Did he succeed? Time will tell, and we will know very quickly. His visit will backfire. His goals, whether he achieved them or not, they will backfire. There are three unexpected results that Putin instantly received from this trip. First, he angered South Korea, the army number 6 in the world, and that's the truth. A leader of high-tech world and high-tech weapons, the country with huge reserves of advanced weapons. And on top of that, South Korea did not support Ukraine, but it was more or less neutral. Well, South Korea is not neutral anymore. The authorities just announced that they support Ukraine, and they're considering supplying it with high-tech, latest weapons. That is the answer to Vladimir Putin signing the treaty with the North Korea. The second result, Putin and Kim the third, they just traded places. Kim actually is a smart guy. He was educated at a Swiss school. He went to school in Switzerland. He received, and he was not educated by...
I thought he went to school in America.
North Koreans. He was educated by the Swiss. Okay, he received what could be the best education in the world. He inherited ideology along with power, and he uses it as a tool to retain power. He uses it to simply stay alive. Without power, he's instantly dead. In the same way, he inherited international isolation. Putin, unlike Kim, created international isolation himself. It's his choice for the country and for himself. He is building the new regime now himself. Everything, its slogans, its institutions, he is building new ideology. This is not inheritance, but that's Putin's own handwork. So basically, Kim the Third and Putin, they traded places. And the third result, Putin has put even more uncertainty into the heads of Russian people. Imagine seeing something black, and the government, everyone around you, tells you it's black. Then, overnight, things change. And the very same people who yesterday were calling black black, now calling it white, and act as if they themselves truly believe it's white. Okay? And this is what I started this live stream with. North Korea was a clown state for all of us. Was a living satire. Russia was among the first countries putting sanctions on it. The last time Russia put sanctions on North Korea was just a few years ago in 2017. Russian propaganda went irate. It was so proud of the sanctions, bragging on every corner how Russia was helping the world's community to keep North Korea in its place. And all of a sudden, literally overnight, the very same people start praising the very same North Korea, saying last 40 years knowing the truth about North Korea. Now you're telling us that this is the freest country. It's the least freest country in the world, okay? They keep on saying now that, oh, North Korea is doing fine economically despite unfair criminal sanctions the evil West has placed on it. Russia has placed sanctions on North Korea. Not even West, you know. Russia was one of the first countries, you know, in the avant-garde of this whole sanction in North Korea thing. And no, North Korea is not doing well financially, you know, and Putin mentioned that in one of his speeches, saying, despite, you know, you have withstood all the sanctions, bull crap. This doesn't go well in hands of some people in Russia. I underline, in heads of some people. Because most Russians buy it, but some people don't. And if you remain in Russia and you lead the usual life, when you hear such metamorphosis, you can go a little crazy bit by bit, you know. This might have such negative effect on people's mental health, you know. People might get succumb into radicalization. And then, guess what happens next? Things like the attack in Derbent and Makhachkala, things like that might happen. Moreover, they will be happening more and more. And by the way, that attack is still going on. There's a huge fight. The city of Derbent is basically under siege from the locals who turned radical terrorists, and they start shooting everyone, cops, and the whole 9 yards. And things like that will be happening because people go crazy bit by bit. They lose values, they lose direction, they lose, sense of country in their heads.
Still want to listen to that? Or?
It's interesting, don't you find? Or no?
Yeah, I think we'll be going on for a lot of us, I guess.
Patreon
Okay.
at patreon.com, where I post 9 carefully selected news with my commentaries and analysis every single day. So if you want to keep up with latest news, what's going on in Russia, sign up. The link is down below. So whatever goals when he went to North Korea, he came back with the results that will be hurting Russia even more. I know. It's hardly possible, but it's possible, He is the worst leader Russia has ever had. He often talks of Russia losing sovereignty, but he needs to shut up because he has destroyed Russia with his own hands. He is the reason Russia will cease to exist soon. He is the worst leader my country has ever had in the history, and he is the reason it will die. Folks, things have gotten even worse since he came back from North Korea. Well, now I'd like to invite everyone to pray with me. It's going to be a short prayer. If you're religious or not, please join me anyway. Thank you so very much. Let's do it. Dear Lord Jesus Christ, thank you so much for giving us this day, giving us food, giving us roofs over our heads, surrounding us with people who we love and who love us. Please give us wisdom to keep the skies above our children's heads safe and peaceful, and raise them in a way that when they grow up, they will make this world a better place. We will never engage in any wars, but love each other. Dear Lord, please help Ukraine stop the bloodshed. 3 reach out and touch the hearts and souls of those who are responsible and capable of making the decision to stop the bloodshed, wake them up from the lethargic sleep, have them feel human emotions and love again, so they make the decision to stop the bloodshed. And please help every single Ukrainian who has been affected by this terrible tragedy. Answer their prayers and make their wishes come true. Please help my country to assemble your strongest angels with sharpest swords into your heavenly army led by Saint Michael, and send it down to this earth to get rid of the demons that have hijacked my country, who we know by names and by their faces. Send angels to help good Russians to run Russia, make it peaceful, loving, and respecting. Please help those who are traveling, send them safe travels. Who are at high waters and danger of any kind, send safety. Please help single mothers who are struggling, trying to make their ends meet. Please help those who are hungry, addicted, sick, homeless, jobless, depressed, betrayed, not feeling well about themselves, losing their faith, and feeling alone in this world. Please reach out and touch the heart of every person. Feel it with love. Show everyone that you are with them. You watch every step they take. You help them. You never leave them. You love them. Please help the people in need in any way they need help with. Thank you so very much, dear Lord Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen.
Friends, now I'd like to invite you to learn how Russian ruble is turning into chaos. I put another video, the link is right here.
That was nice.
Our planet is brimming with mysteries that defy imagination. Places so surreal, they could spark science fiction movies. These are marvels sculpted by nature. Found on remote islands or in hard-to-reach areas.
Look at the face. They have a face in the rock.
Sometimes they are creations of human ingenuity, hidden for centuries. Today, we embark on a thrilling journey to unusual corners. We'll unveil destinations that make our world so magical and unparalleled. Bogdanovich Glacier, Kazakhstan. The mountains of Almaty are relatively accessible. But in the winter, they become perilous due to avalanches and risk of altitude sickness. Nestled among these peaks is the Bogdanovich Glacier, home to the Oktyabrskaya Cave, one of the planet's most fascinating
It's like a magical entrance to a cave from the stories of the Orient. Each year, adventurers are drawn to its beauty and enigmas. However, venturing inside is risky, and not just because of its slopes. A partial or complete collapse of the cave could occur. Inside, nature has sculpted a masterpiece, blending ice, rock, and glimmering light. A thick layer of turquoise ice has formed. In other areas, the wall is coated with fine, sparkling snow. The cycle of melting and refreezing constantly renews these formations, making every visit unique. Mount Hua, China. Also known as Huashan, this mountain features vertical rock walls and narrow pathways. It's known for its 5 distinctive peaks, hosting precipitous cliffs, tranquil temples, and serene lookouts. For centuries, it has been a sacred site for Taoism. A series of steep trails lead to the mountain's 5 summits. Climbing hundreds of steps through confined spaces is necessary. Alternatively, a cable car can be used for half the ascent. One path is the challenging plank walk. Created centuries ago by a Taoist priest, it's reinforced annually. This path is used for both ascending and descending. In some areas, where only one person can pass, steps are carved into the wall. Upon completing this adventure, one can continue to the renowned chess pavilion. Tianmen Mountain National Forest Park, China. It stands as a sanctuary of natural wonders, with winding paths that blend traditional and modern architecture. The 99 Bends Road leads to the summit of Tianmen Mountain. In traditional Chinese culture, the number 9 is associated with the emperor, the son of heaven. Thus, this road symbolizes a journey to the heavens. The journey ends at Heaven's Gate, which requires climbing 999 steps to reach. Lake Baikal, Russia. Winter transforms this body of water into a symphony of whites and blues. An intricate interplay of ice and cold. also among the oldest, dating back about 25 million years. Hovercrafts become the go-to transportation across its frozen expanse. Due to its location and immense size, the winds here are often unpredictable and can be extremely strong.
Okay.
The Sama, a cold northwest wind, sometimes reaches hurricane-like forces. Cold air rushes down from the mountains to the lake, accelerating channels through the valleys.
Okay. Time to sleep.